You only have one life to live, so get the most out of it. On Good Life, Great Life, join me, Brian Highfield, and my guests as we share success stories, habits, mindsets, and lessons learned by successful people. These lessons are not taught in schools, but are critical for getting ahead in life. Whether you want a successful business or career, optimal health, or a lifestyle that most people just dream of, Good Life, Great Life has you covered. After retiring from a successful corporate career in my 40s, I founded multi-million-dollar businesses in the sports and healthcare arenas. Now, I help everyday people maximize their lives and speak regularly at seminars, on podcasts, and radio shows to share principles on the topics of health, wealth, and happiness. Don't let a good life get in the way of a great life. Join me today on Good Life, Great Life. Well, welcome to another episode of Good Life, Great Life. And today we have with us Yong-Soo Chung. Yong-Soo, he started a brand called Urban EDC, and then he launched a new company called GrowthJet not too long ago. And he's got his new endeavor now of his podcast, First Class Founders. So welcome to the program, Yong-Soo.
Thanks, Brian. I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. So give us a little bit of color in your background, because you did start like most people do, like in corporate America. You were a software engineer, which is close to my heart. That's how I got started in the industry. If you could spell IT, you got a job in IT back in the 1990s. But how did you transform from being an employee to being an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So I actually started my career in finance in New York in 2009. So I graduated from college in 2009. Obviously, a great time to get started in finance around that time with the Great Recession. But then I quickly noticed that I didn't have the community that I was looking for. So I was really starting to get into startups and just technology in general. And New York City at the time just wasn't the place for me. So I just bought a one-way ticket to come out here in San Francisco, which is where I am now. And I only had one suitcase. So I was living off of a suitcase for 3 months, crashing with a friend of mine in Berkeley, just on the ground on an air mattress. And that's kind of how like the early beginnings of my career in tech started. And then I joined a startup that focuses on like mobile gaming. And then after that, I went to an engineering boot camp for 13 weeks, where all I did was eat and breathe code. And I learned the ins and outs of engineering. And then I was able to join a blockchain, a cryptocurrency company, as a software engineer right after that, which was very fortuitous and fortunate for me. But then right around 2015 is when all the regulations started happening. And at that time, our team was blocked from progressing any further in our projects. And that felt really frustrating for me, because I'm always someone that I want to see progress. I want to push the envelope along, right? So for me, that was kind of the right time for to start my entrepreneurial journey. And so I started Urban EDC. So EDC stands for everyday carry. So these are things that you carry on a daily basis, like your wallet, your watch, maybe a pen or a flashlight. And that's kind of how I started at the end of 2015. And then 3 years later, we had a lot of issues with our fulfillment. And so we decided to bring fulfillment in-house. And then we actually launched another brand with my wife. So we brought home a French bulldog, and we posted a lot of cute videos, and some of them went viral. I think one video where I'm holding our dog, our Frenchie, that one went viral and got 1 million views. And like, it's so funny because like I'm in that video. But I always tell my wife, it's like dogs and kids always seem to go viral. And then if you put them together, that's the ultimate combination, right? Yeah. So we started a brand called Spotted by Humphrey, and that's a dog boutique brand. So my wife currently runs that. So we discovered that the back end operations were pretty much the same. So it's both e-commerce shops, and we had the same team shipping out all the goods. And at one point we had people just asking us like, hey, who's doing fulfillment? Because my fulfillment is really, really troublesome. I'm having a lot of issues. So we decided to take in a few private clients, and we just kind of grew from there. And we didn't even have a website or a name, but we were providing a service that people obviously needed. And so that's how GrowthJet was born. And then we saw the waste and the whole climate, in logistics, it's very, very wasteful, the entire industry. And so we decided to, double down on this value of climate neutral, getting our certification for 2020 and 2021. And then we're working on 2022 now. But yeah, that's kind of how that started. And now we moved into a 39,000 square foot warehouse where, we've got growing team, and that's been great. And then now my focus is First Class Founders, which is a podcast for entrepreneurs. And these are just lessons that I've learned and kind of like frameworks and mental models that have really helped me in my journey. And so I'm just trying to get my ideas and my experiences out there for anyone else who wants to learn from my mistakes and be able to kind of get further along in their journey on their entrepreneurial path much quicker and faster and more efficiently than me. So
yeah, and so that's quite a progression there, and I can kind of see the logic of these stepping stones to kind of getting where you are now. But what are some of the biggest lessons that you kind of learned along the way that you're now sharing with other entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So the biggest lessons, I think, are that you want to, if you're starting a company, you want to validate your ideas first. And so what's really important that I found is to kind of set your ego aside. So I know a lot of entrepreneurs, when they first start, they get really proud of, whatever product they're making, and they kind of hold it dear to their hearts. Like they have, NDAs, and like they're really afraid of sharing their ideas. But really, you need to quiet your ego and just get your ideas out there and just get feedback right away. And almost certainly your ideas will evolve and change based on market feedback. And so you want to validate your ideas first before really investing a lot of either time or resources into what you're building. And so just to give you an idea for your listeners, when I started Urban EDC, the first company, I validated the idea by buying stuff off of Amazon and just reselling them at no profit. And it was just a test to see if people would actually resonate with, there were no shops that specialize in everyday carry gear at the time. So it was for me to see, hey, putting it out there, are people interested? Like I had no idea. And so it's really important to test first before you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on marketing or like inventory or whatever you're doing.
Yeah. So basically you were buying the products on Amazon and reselling them on your own platform just to test your idea.
Yes, exactly.
Just to see if there's a need for those types of products.
Yep, and then gather feedback. So early on, I didn't have any pocket knives in the shop, but I've learned that in the everyday carry community, the pocket knife is like a staple. Like it all starts from there. And so, I wasn't a big knife guy when I first started, but then now the shop is 90% knife sales. And so you need to have that as part of this community that we're serving. And so I didn't know that. So we launched with like, very basic items like, Zippo letters and a few pens and things like that. But then, based on feedback, we added the knives, and then now we do our own production, entire production runs of knives, working with designers. So yeah, it's kind of
No, it's really cool. So you said validate ideas. What are some of the other big lessons?
Yeah, so you could build an audience. So I encourage everyone to build an audience first, so that you can start kind of seeing what their problems are. So for Urban EDC, people were saying that they see all this really cool gear on Instagram, but they don't know where to buy it, because a lot of these makers are like, they're making stuff from their garage and they make like very small batch goods. And so we were able to work with those makers and bring them into the shop to have it like in one area, in one place, and people really like that. So definitely build an audience first. just to gauge an idea. But what's also important is that having an audience doesn't necessarily mean that they will translate to sales. And so, when I first started Urban EDC, I grew an Instagram account to about 10,000 followers, and then from that I kind of launched it. But first 3 days of launching the shop, I had no sales, and actually the first sale was from a high school friend of mine. He didn't even tell me he was buying anything. But that was really humbling because I had built this audience of 10,000 followers, and I really tried to get some sales in the door right off the bat, but it was just like nothing. And so
yeah, and that's common because I've run into that as well, and I talk to a lot of other people kind of do that. They think if I put up my net wide enough to enough people that I'll get a certain percentage of sales, and that's not always the case.
It's definitely not the case, and I see this mistake, time and time again, like where people start a business and then they get feedback from like their significant other or their parents or their family members, and like, to be honest, like that is not the best place to get feedback because they're not going to be your target audience, right? So like you don't want your mom to give you feedback on a knife shop, for example. She's not going to be your target audience. So I actually didn't tell any of my friends or my family about. I mean, I told them that I was doing this thing, but I didn't ask for feedback because I knew that their feedback is probably not the most representative of the community that I'm trying to serve. And so I think that's also important. So like audience doesn't necessarily translate to sales, and then be really careful about who you get feedback from. Make sure that they're actually part of the audience that you're serving.
Yeah, and I've seen, a lot of people just kind of throw a Facebook ad out there and, hits a lot of people, and Facebook, charges you a lot of money to run an ad and to a lot of people. But it's the conversion process, I think, that people stumble on, converting that person who clicks on their ad to actually making a purchase on their website.
Yeah, and I think that building trust goes a long way here. So I actually I have a friend who's starting a brand. And she recently asked me about how do I drive traffic to my new website, because I just launched this thing, and she was asking me about Facebook ads and like how she just started using it. And the first thing I said was like, that's the wrong approach. The approach should be, you got to build your I guess your audience in terms of like, you got to build trust with them first, right? And so I told her like, you got to start posting just content just daily, and like if one of those things does really well, that means it resonates with your audience, and so you could put a little bit of marketing spend behind those posts that are already doing well. And so it's this concept of like, start really small, see what works, experiment, and then if things are working, then put more behind it, versus just going right from the beginning. I need traffic, I'm going to spend like $100 a day, whatever, on marketing. And then like, you're kind of like, okay, I don't see any results. Like, what am I doing wrong? I think you have to approach it from the other side, which is like tiny little experiments, see what works, and then double down.
No, I think that's wise approach. That because I've made that mistake several times. It took me a while to understand that trust aspect. You still need that relationship with your potential customer, for them to make a purchase from you. So that's great advice.
Yeah, no, I totally, I think that email is a great platform. And so getting people on your newsletter is a great platform for building trust. And so I call it like discovery platforms. So all these social media networks, like, whatever, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, even like LinkedIn for professional stuff. Those are discoverability platforms where people will start to see your content because they have all the algorithms and all that stuff. But you really want to get them into your, like a podcast would also be a great example. And then also a newsletter, so that you can start building that relationship. And so once they see your content, like it might not be immediate, but like maybe in the 7th or 8th newsletter, they're like, oh yeah, I've seen, this person with this brand's content for a while now. I feel a sense of like trust, I feel like I don't know, it's just like it's like a weird feeling, but you feel more reassured that it's not someone who's gonna like scam you or something, right? So they definitely it takes a while to build that trust, and it's like a relationship building thing. So you can't just like, go to a party and like become best friends with someone you just meet, right? It takes a little bit of time.
Yeah.
So
no, it makes perfect sense. Tell me more about your dogs, because you said you have 2 French bulldogs. They have a huge social media following. Is there plans to kind of capitalize on that with having a huge following?
Yeah, so we have our dog boutique shop called Spotted by Humphrey, and that's a play on words from his Instagram and TikTok handle, which is Spotted Humphrey. So that we do get some brand deals as well. So we work with brands and we'll do sponsor posts. So it's a combination of like content creation, but also this, the shop that goes along with it. And really the shop just came out really naturally because people kept asking us like, hey, that leash is really cool. Where did you buy it? Or that harness, or those dog toys are really, funky. Like, where did you get those? And, instead of driving traffic to somewhere else, like even like an Amazon site, we decided to just, why not create a shop and drive traffic back there? And then we can just get the sales that way. And then we already have the infrastructure for it because of Urban EDC. And so that was a really natural progression of how we thought about monetizing the audience that way. But a lot of people just generally just really love the funny, things that they do. And my wife she's really good at kind of storytelling in these like 5 to 10 second video clips. And so it's been a really fun journey.
Great. So what's next? Because you've just really launched this First Class Founders podcast. What's your vision there?
Yeah, so the vision for First Class Founders is an educational platform for new entrepreneurs and founders to be able to go in there and essentially learn about a specific topic. So right now it's pretty early still. I've got about 13 episodes, but the vision for it is that kind of like almost like a school in a way where people can go there, look at the topics that they're interested in, click on it, learn, and essentially just learn from each other as well. So I'm trying to build this community of people that are willing to share their experiences, but also learn from each other. And so, and right now it's just me, and then I have a producer, but it's mostly my own experience. But I'm really hoping in the future that we can get other experiences from other perspectives and be able to kind of share that and weave that into First Class Founders. So that's kind of the bigger long-term goal. But right now, we're just starting with the podcast. Oh, and I actually just launched a newsletter as well.
Okay.
It's like a companion piece. And so I was trying to figure out how to provide value because it's like a companion to the podcast. So, I talk about the episode in the newsletter, but then I share like all my podcast download numbers, subscriber, newsletter, open rates and click-through rates and all that. And I'm just trying to provide value to newsletter subscribers that, instead of just having, here's the latest episode, go click on, go listen to it. Like, I just feel like that's a little pointless.
Yeah.
And so I do have like a weekly reflection section in the newsletter as well, where it talks about like everything that I'm learning that week about building an audience. Cause I'm kind of new in this journey too for my creator stuff. So, I'm learning a lot, and I feel like I could share that knowledge as well. So the newsletter is the medium that I share all those like, behind the scenes, like experiments that I'm trying, where the podcast is kind of the finished product. And so it's like polished up, it's really like, so that's kind of I guess, the difference between those two, but yeah.
And it kind of reminds me of a recurring theme that we see with our podcast episodes is we don't know what we don't know. And so when you do something like that, some of those things start to get exposed. People start learning from each other, like you were pointing out. And it's like, gosh, I never knew that world even existed. I didn't know you could do that. And people are discovering things from each other. And I just think it's a wonderful outlet to really learn the things that you just don't even know that exist.
Right. No, I totally agree. And I'm meeting a lot of awesome people also, by the way, on the podcast. So that's another added benefit to the podcast is that you can reach out and get people on that you wouldn't normally they don't have a reason to speak to you unless, you have a podcast and you invite them on, and like, it's just a great experience.
No, that's great. So we're running out of time, but how can our audience learn more about you, connect with you, and maybe connect with your podcast?
Yeah. So the podcast is at firstclassfounders.com. And then I also have the newsletter that I mentioned, which is just firstclassfounders.com/newsletter. And that'll take you to the page where all the previous posts are in there as well. And then my e-commerce website is urbanedc.com. And then if you want to check out my two French bulldogs, you can find them on Instagram and TikTok at Spotted Humphrey. And then also, if you have an e-commerce website and you're looking for fulfillment, then GrowthJet.com is where you can find information about our fulfillment business.
Awesome. Great stuff. Well, I really appreciate you being with our program, Yong-Soo. It's been great. There's a lot of good tips in there that I think people get value out of.
Thanks so much, Brian. I really enjoy being here, and I hope your audience finds value in everything that we shared today.
Awesome. So our guest today has been Yong-Soo Chung, so a serial entrepreneur and podcaster. So make sure you check him out and check out his First Class Founders podcast. Thank you again.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Good Life, Great Life, brought to you by Brian Highfield. We hope you enjoyed listening to this week's guests and stories. If you like what you've heard, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts.